Oh my God, 5 minutes. Okay, so if you've got a Roku device on your network, you can netcat to that port and you can control your Roku device. It's pretty cool. So if you have one, check it out. There's some world domination propaganda. So I'll talk quickly about the potential Linksys vulnerability. It was reported to Cisco PCERT. It turns out it was an HNAP vulnerability that causes the admin interface to crash. Turns out not to be a vulnerability. That's how you can try and reproduce it. Yes, it's lame. However, the information I got from Cisco was there's no way to disable HMAP. I wasn't fuzzing HNAP. I was trying to send it a legitimate request, and I crashed something. I contacted Cisco, and they said, well, we have no way to disable that. I'm like, but I haven't even got to fuzzing it yet. What if I do find something? You can't even tell people to disable it because you can't do that. So one of the things that I want to work on is getting vendors to help us actually be able to turn things off. So seriously, what do we do about it? I mean, I could stand here and talk about embedded system security fail until you're tired of hearing about it, which was probably 15 minutes ago or longer. I could find lots of zero-day exploits and I could release them all over the place. I don't think it's going to help. I wanted to try something different. I wanted to try something that we can work as a community in order to affect change in the industry to fix these problems that I've been talking about for years, and I keep talking about until I'm blue in the face, and I still see stuff like routers being deployed with no passwords. So, how do we fix it? Yes, I will not stop talking about this even with a giant pink binky in my mouth. SecurityFail.com. I remembered we owned SecurityFail.com. I was like, that's pretty cool. That's how this whole project actually started. I said, we got to do something with this because this is just too cool, this domain. So this is where we parked it. Now, it used to redirect to www.grc.com. Giggity. Now, it's actually a public wiki, which is up now, where you can go. And what I want from you, and we've gotten lots of stories from people in the past that say, hey, I've got this HP printer. Look at the security fail on it. Hey, I've got this implementation issue, right? And this is what we're attacking here. We're not attacking the security. We're attacking the implementation. And I've got all these issues, and they send them to us, and we talk to them about the show. So I want this site to be able to catalog them, and hopefully we can use it to start steering vendors in the right direction despite all of their crying and moaning about not implementing security, and write about it. Write about it anonymously. The account creation is not open yet, but if you send me an email, I will create you an account and you can write an article or a story that talks about embedded device security fail. Now, we've got some hooks in there where we can start talking about other things like protocols, like SSL, which is broken a lot. But let's focus on embedded systems for now. So the goal is to raise awareness, and we want to, I've highlighted some preliminary goals. I want people to work with the industry to force users to select the password, no more default passwords. I want users to disable protocols if they need to and use secure management protocols by default. I want ISPs to start blocking inbound port 80 to their DSL providers to help protect their routers. And I also want them to manage their customers and implement security. So please, submit your stories. I want this to be a vocal talking point. You can send them to me anonymously if you want. The guys at PaulDotCom, we're going to post our stories out there. I've got more information associated with this talk that I will release as well. I'm already going over my time now. So go to SecurityFail.com. Like I said, email me for an account. This is a completely nonprofit venture, by the way. I don't want to make any money off of this. I want this to be a vendor-agnostic way for people to voice their concerns and their issues with embedded devices. Now, what about world domination? It turns out there's an app for that. Did you know that? So, so the things that I wanted to cover were the Chuck Norris worm, which could have been, I think, just a version of a previous embedded systems worm. And we can talk about the flame war I had with some Linux people on comments for a blog post from IT World, which was kind of funny. I did not cover static analysis of firmware, which I'm working on, which means mounting the file systems of firmware from a binary file, which is really, really interesting. I just didn't have room for it. I didn't do a lot of analyzing video game systems, TiVo and Blu-ray players, and how they're connecting to the network and communicating. I did have the Roku example, which I kind of breezed through, but that one's in there. I didn't talk about wireless worms and default wireless settings. So we talked about default settings from the internet side, but what about default wireless settings that can spread wirelessly amongst the community? and how segmentation is just a Band-Aid. And Carlos, one of the members of PaulDotCom, he fell right into this trap, and he said, well, I always recommend the customer segment it. I'm like, that's just a Band-Aid. You're not fixing the problem. You're taking what you know is vulnerable, and you're kind of like throwing it over there in the corner and saying, well, if it's over there, no one will attack it. But we're not addressing the fundamental issues that all of these devices have, and the attitude of the vendors that make them to produce them and be insecure. So again, SecurityFail.com, go there, write about this failure that is embedded device security, and hopefully we can affect some change in the industry. And if you're interested in any of the Paul.com stuff, my email is paul@pauldotcom.com. Send email to me and I can create you an account in the wiki. So how did I do on the 5-minute thing? Any questions? No questions? Anyone want a question? It's the same old stuff for the most part. It's weak passwords. It's the unique embedded stuff tends to be in the protocols that you only find on embedded systems. Like I didn't really talk about HNAP, but HNAP is a control protocol for more like not universal, similar to universal plug and play in the way it works with SOAP requests over HTTP, but in that if you place a support call to Cisco, they can log into your desktop and then query your router and get information from it over HNAP is what they intended that protocol to use. It was created by Cisco. So you see a lot of the same protocol-like implementation issues because you don't see HNAP on systems, more likely on embedded systems. So it's those protocols that are giving us the embedded type specific vulnerabilities. Most of the other stuff is just implementations of Telnet and SNMP and stupid stuff like that. So. That's a good point. Any other questions? Anyone want to share a story about how embedded security sucks? Yes, volunteer.
When I first moved into my house, just scanning the neighborhood for open networks. Didn't have anything at the time. And found one, had the address on it and everything. And met the woman, and I thought, what do you do for work? I said, oh, computer security. Speaking of which,
Speaking of which, we need to talk.
Yeah.
A what? I have a what? I have a router? Yeah.
I don't even have a computer.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, it brings up a good point about how the awareness level of average people who don't do computers, you know, they have wireless routers and they don't understand the security, and we should take it upon ourselves to help explain it to them so that their neighbors can be secure too. Question, Dan? Ah, you've got a friend named Bob too. Yeah. Oh, very nice, very nice. So Bob did some more driving, found that the administrative interfaces on 80% of the routers that he scanned were the default passwords, logged in and blocked MySpace and Facebook on them. That's great. Yeah, you made their networks more secure, or Bob did. Any other questions? Okay, I'll be around for a little while if anyone wants to come find me.